Hi y'all, welcome back to That Tattooed Art Teacher, where I break down every one of the 250 AP Art History works with little sass and a lot of facts. I'm Miss A, yes I've got tattoos, and yes, we're about to make this ancient rock way more interesting than your textbook ever could. Today we're diving into the Apollo 11 stones, so grab a notebook, a snack, and your spiraling sense of academic dread, and let's make it make sense. We're starting in prehistoric Africa, where many scientists agree the origin of humanity also lies. It's here that we find our earliest examples of art, though we can assume that the people who created these pieces did not have the same conceptualization of art as we do today, especially in the Western sense. Our earliest surviving examples date all the way back to between 100,000 and 600,000 years ago, and include two very distinct forms. One, personal adornment, in the form of seashells strung on twine, so jewelry, or some sort of clothing decoration. Or two, incised engraved stone, ochre, and ostrich shell. It's likely some sort of totem or decoration that could potentially be carried with them, though the engraved crosshatch designs of those fragments are a far cry from the complexity of the paintings that we find on the Apollo 11 stones in Namibia. These stones date to between 25,500 to 25,300 BCE, during the Mesolithic period, or Middle Stone Age. As we take a closer look at the Apollo 11 stones specifically, let's start by setting the scene. The Apollo 11 rock shelter is located in the Huns Mountains of Namibia, on the southwest coast of Africa, overlooking a now dry gorge, sitting 20 meters above what was once a river that ran along the valley floor, which, if you're a prehistoric man or woman, a cave right alongside a riverbed is prime real estate. Two of your primary needs are immediately accounted for: shelter and water. The cave entrance is wide, about 28 meters across, which is 92 feet for my metric viewers. Think about how long 30 yards is on a football field. The cave itself is 11 meters, or 36 feet. So imagine 12 yards on your football field, from front to back. During the Middle Stone Age, as well as in the periods before and after, the rock shelter was an active, ongoing site of human settlement. Remember, water, shelter, all in one spot. On the cave walls belonging to the later Stone Age period, we see rock paintings of white and red zigzags, handprints, and 3 geometric images. And on the banks of the riverbed, just upstream from the cave, we found engravings of a variety of animals, some with zigzag lines leading upwards, dated to less than 2,000 years ago. So great, the scene is set. We have a deep cave on a river valley floor that has clear markings of other humans having settled here before and after our period that the stones are dated to. So clearly a solid spot to live, or at least catch a night's sleep. Now in total, we're looking at 7 fragments of brown gray quartzite, some of them depicting traces of animal figures drawn in charcoal, ochre, and white were found in this cave. Among these ornamented fragments, only one drawing could be identified as a rhinoceros, and other creatures depicted remain ambiguous. Think about your 4-year-old brother trying to draw something he saw for a split second. All of these fragments were found buried in a concentrated area of the floor, less than 2 meters square. Radiocarbon dating provides an estimate of when these rocks were buried, although it's still not possible to determine how old the images were before burial. We have no idea if this piece was passed down generationally, made recently, and left behind. In this same layer of substrate, stone artifacts typical of the Mesolithic period, such as blades, pointed flakes, and scrapers, were found in raw materials not native to the region. Now, why is that significant? Keep in mind that in the Middle Stone Age period in southern Africa, prehistoric man was a hunter-gatherer, moving from place to place in search of food and shelter. With this taken into account, the presence of these discoveries immediately tells us that the people who found shelter here traveled from and also transported these tools over long distances. It also implies that the people who brought these items found them useful and or important enough to carry for extended periods of time. Remember that your packing space would have been incredibly limited. How much can you carry? How much are you willing to carry on your back for miles on end? Survival concerns took priority over everything else. Do I want to fill sacks with water and the vegetation that I've collected to eat, or this rock? Among the remnants of hearths found here dating to roughly the same time period, ostrich eggshell fragments bearing traces of red color were also found, either remnants of ornamental painting or evidence that the eggshells were used as containers for pigment. So what does that tell us? Let's put on our detective hats. If these eggshells with paint remnants are left by the ancient fireplace, well, why would they be there? They're still actively creating art or adorning something, maybe even themselves, with red pigments around the fire at night. Remember, there are no lamps or flashlights to light your space at night in prehistoric times, so this is your one light source. You also don't have Instagram, TikTok, Netflix, so what do you do with your spare time? The painted stones we want to focus on that now generally are referred to as the Apollo 11 stones were left behind by their artist or artists and buried on the floor of the cave by layers of sediment and debris over centuries. And here they remained until 1969, when a team led by German archaeologist W.E. Wendt excavated the rock shelter and found the first fragment depicting some sort of animal charcoal drawing. Like I mentioned earlier, the drawings leave plenty to the imagination, as a majority of them appear ambiguous at best. So what the fuck do these stones have to do with Apollo 11 then? Get this. Wendt named the cave Apollo 11 as he heard of NASA's successful space mission to the moon on his radio while excavating the cave. Yep, that's it. As we go through art history, you'll find that the naming of works can sometimes be very misleading or altogether irrelevant, like this one, left up to the creativity of whatever man finds it first. It was more than 3 years later, after another excavation, when Wendt discovered the matching fragment, the right half of the quartzite slab depicting our mystery animal, that the archaeologists and art historians began to understand the significance of the find. When placed together, the two fragments we want to direct our main attention to reveal a drawing of an unidentified animal form, resembling maybe some sort of feline, but with human hind legs that were probably added later? Question mark? Archaeologists and historians have come to that conclusion mainly because the back legs appear to be, quote, stylistically inconsistent. The argument is that the legs aren't in line with the rest of the body's proportions, far too skinny, suggesting it was added by either a different artist and or at a later time, and also that the paint application might have been different than the original front half of the creature. But this is incredibly hard, if not impossible, to tell for certain. Barely visible on the head of the animal are two slightly curved horns, likely belonging to an oryx, which is a large grazing antelope. And on the animal's underbelly, possibly the sexual organ of a bovid, essentially cattle. A cow. And how do we know it's a cow's? Honestly, that's a question for the zoologist who weighed in on the matter. I definitely am not an expert. So what the heck is it, this big cat antelope cowman? Some art historians have theorized that it might be some kind of supernatural creature, a therianthrope, part human, part animal. We see these kinds of hybrid fantastical creatures pop up all over later civilization. Half of the ancient Egyptian gods are characterized as man-animal hybrids, like Anubis, the jackal-headed god, or there's the Assyrian Lamassu, or the Greek Minotaur. It's not necessarily a new phenomenon in art history. But if that is indeed the case, this conclusion has huge ramifications for these caves, as it could then suggest a complex shamanistic belief system. And if that's the case, this could be our first evidence of complex spiritual belief in early humans. Taken together with the later rock paintings and the engravings, Apollo 11 becomes more than just a cave offering shelter from the elements. It potentially becomes a site of ritual significance used by many for thousands of years. Because if this picture of a deity is being left behind, surely there's some reason or correlating significance for that. At least that's the assumption that's being made. Really, in my opinion, this theory only becomes compelling when examining the fact so many other mysterious markings were left here subsequently. In all honesty, if it were down to the stones alone, they could have been left here for a slew of reasons. Just use your imagination. Why do you leave things at restaurants, or on vacation, or at school? Why do you forget things and leave them behind? They had much more pressing matters than getting to their next class. Considering also our previous understanding of the evolution of man, that Homo sapiens developed on the continent of Africa more than 100,000 years ago and spread throughout the world, the evidence of this artwork tells us that man during this period was not only anatomically modern, but also behaviorally modern, at least to an extent, as they're creating an image of a creature that must have been both observed and imagined all at once. As stated by Dr. Natalie Hager, that is to say, these early humans possessed the new and unique capacity for modern symbolic thought, the human capacity, long before what was previously understood. So, what do y'all think? Religious totem, good luck charm, sentimental painting, Poorly drawn animal charting? What was the original purpose of the Apollo 11 stones? Let me know in the comments below. Unfortunately, until we're able to develop a functioning time machine, it looks like we're left to merely theorize and speculate. That's it for today's artsy intel. If today's piece is now inked in your brain, give this video a like, drop your favorite fun facts in the comments, and subscribe for more memory-making breakdowns of the 250. Because be so for real, this test isn't going to pass itself. And follow me on TikTok and Instagram at ThatTattooedArtTeacher for quick study tips, memes, fun facts, art tips, and behind-the-scenes teacher chaos. Until next time, this is Miss A, your tattooed guide to everything old, weird, and beautiful in art history. Stay curious, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next masterpiece. Later, nerds!